Okay, guys, America's birthday is coming up, and we are star-spangled stumped on what to get her this year for her birthday.
Yeah. If you guys don't know what to get America, who does?
Here's an idea. Why don't we give everyone kites and metallic keys? And we hope for a lightning strike. Now that I say that out loud, it sounds like a terrible idea. That's your house. What are you working on there? Is that a birthday gift?
Oh, yes, it is. It's my newest invention. It's a blanket, but with sleeves.
You mean a Snuggie?
Gesundheit.
Why don't we just get her a gift card? We could all pitch in, I don't know, say $1.
Or better yet, $5.
Pipe down, Abe. No one takes you or that beard seriously. It looks like it's trying to secede from your face.
Oh, snap! Someone call the fire department, which I invented, FYI, because Abe just got burnt.
What's wrong with my facial hair?
Oh, sweetie. Looks like you just got back from a Mumford & Sons concert. Ooh! Shots fired. It was too soon. I'm so sorry.
Paul Revere, go ahead.
Who needs gifts when you can have a surprise party?
Oh, brother.
You get a gift, you get a gift, you get a gift, you get a gift.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people to reach out to and not very much time.
You're kidding me. That's literally my thing, yo. The birthday is coming. The birthday is coming. Shh. It's a secret.
87 years ago.
No, Abe. Okay, sorry I'm late, guys. What'd I miss?
Oh, hey, Uncle Sam. We're trying to figure out what to do for America's birthday.
She doesn't need anything. Listen to me, America's got it all. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You want to know what to do for a country that has everything? Celebrate it. And share that blessing with others. God bless America.
So maybe we could take a picture of all of us, put it in a nice frame. We could all wear white shirts and khakis and take it on the beach.
Maybe, but I want you to shave that awful facial hair first.
I know that's right.
Precisely.
So circling back. Is that a no on the surprise party?
One if by land, two if by no.
Let's just do hot dogs and fireworks like normal.
Or kites and keys if it's raining?
Get up! As we celebrate our independence, let's celebrate our freedom and our freedom in Christ today. Let the darkness fade. Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation. Let's have some fun to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every king there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Sing it with me. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus. As the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shout with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome. And for every king there's an empty grave, for the risen one is overcome. Let's make some noise in the name of Jesus today. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. For the risen one is overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. For the risen one is overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. For the risen one is overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. For the risen one is overcome. He's overcome. We will not be moved. Let's give him some praise today. We're counting every blessing today. I was blind, now I'm seeing in color. I was dead, now I'm living forever. I had failed, but you were my redeemer. I've been blessed beyond all measure. Sing it out. I was lost, now I'm found by the Father. I've been changed from a ruin to a treasure. That's right. I've been given a hope and a future. I've been blessed beyond all measure. Every voice lifted up. I am counting every blessing, counting every blessing, letting go and trusting when I cannot see. I am counting every blessing, counting every blessing. Surely every season you are good to me. Sing it. Oh, good to me. You are good to me.
Welcome to River Lake Church. My name is Jamie. I am so happy to see all of you on this beautiful, beautiful last day of June. If you're new here, we are very excited to see you. You are our VIP. Just a little something I need for you to do. If you'll take one of those blue cards from the back of the chair in front of you, you're going to fill that out with just a little bit of information about yourself on it. And at the end of service, you're going to take it back out in the lobby, across the hall to the out in the auditorium. You'll see our mission statement written on the wall, and we have a T-shirt that we want to give you, just as our way of saying thank you so much for coming and checking us out. We know it can be so hard for checking out a new church. So we are very happy that you're here with us this morning. So we've got something really cool coming up on July the 6th. We have our Independence Day celebration. We like to celebrate around here. And so we've got that coming up. And the Laphams have once again agreed to open up their home to us, to let us come. It's so much fun. If you've ever been, and if you've not, I do invite you to come this year. It is a lot of fun. They have so much stuff for the kids. They have fireworks. Just one thing you need to do, you need to sign up. Be sure and get on riverlakechurch.com. Sign up. Tell how many people's coming, because the Laphams need to know how much meat to prepare and how much homemade ice cream to prepare. And then you just need to bring a side dish, bring chairs for your family, and bring drinks for your family. But again, it is so much fun. We want to thank the Laphams for doing that again this year. But be sure and sign up and come. It is it's an amazing time, fellowship, so much fun. Also, is there any golfers in the room? Yes, got some golfers in the room. So we're having our very first golf scramble. Yeah, that's coming up on July the 13th. I don't know how to golf, never golf, so you probably won't see me there. I may come and cheer some people on, but you can't be loud at the golf course, right? I don't know, I can't. Too many rules, can't do it. Yeah, so July the 13th, you can bring your own team of 4, or we'll match you up. It's $25 to play, and there's going to be a cookout afterwards. Now, I might show up for that part. The food, right? So be sure and get signed up for that. It's so much fun. Go to riverlakechurch.com and get signed up for that. And then also, we're going to put some list of dates on the board of some more upcoming events. Be sure and save those dates on your calendars. We've got lots of good stuff coming up for this summer at River Lake Church. So as we transition into our time of offering, I said just a minute ago that we like to celebrate at River Lake Church. So there's something I want to celebrate today. 1 year ago tomorrow, we held our very first service in this building. Yes. It doesn't seem like it's been a year. I mean, it feels like just yesterday we were in here on Saturday trying to get everything set up so that we could open. And when I say we have volunteers, we have volunteers. I want to show you a picture from our first day. That's not everyone, guys. That's not everyone. That was just a small portion of the volunteers that we had here on our very first day in this building. And I'm just so thankful for every one of you that have believed in our mission and our vision of this church. We knew when we opened River Lake Church several years ago that Glasgow didn't just need another church. Glasgow needed a different kind of church. Glasgow needed a church that no matter what your past, you were welcome. No matter what your beliefs were, you were welcome. No matter where you were in your present life, you were welcome. And we want everyone to feel loved to be here. And I just thank you so much for what you do, for your sacrifices that you make, not only by serving, lots of you in here are volunteers, but also by your giving, the sacrifice that you give to our mission of making it easy for everyone to find and follow Jesus. Would you please stand with me as I pray for our offering? Dear Lord, thank you so much for everything that you give us. Thank you so much for the volunteers that we have in our church. Thank you so much for that we've been in this building 1 year, and to reflect back upon the number of people in our community that we've touched, Lord. Thank you so much for that. And I thank you so much for the offering that we're about to take up, Lord, that we use it to spread your love throughout our community, and we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And it's in his precious and holy name I pray. Amen.
Someone here today may need to hear this song. If you've got a drought going on, if you can relate to that, let's fix our eyes upon Jesus right now. Give him glory and look for that cloud of rain on the horizon. Hear the word roaring as thunder, with a new future to tell. For the dry season is over, there is a cloud beginning to swell. That's right. To the skies, heavy with blessing, lift your eyes, offer your heart. Jesus Christ, open the heavens, now we receive the Spirit of God. Sing it. We receive your rain. Sing it with me. We receive it. We receive your rain. We receive it today. Every seed buried in sorrow, you will call forth in its time. You are Lord, Lord of the harvest, calling our hope now to arise. We receive your rain. Lord, it washes over us. We receive your rain. We receive your rain. Lift your arms to receive it. We receive your rain. Lord, and it washes over us, and it overcomes us, God, like a flood. Like a flood, like a flood. We receive your love when you come like a flood, like a flood. We receive your love when you come like a flood. Sing it out. Like a flood. We receive your love when you come like a flood. Oh, like a flood. We receive your like a flood, Jesus. Thank you so much, Lord. We receive it. And with great anticipation, we await the promise to come. Everything that you have spoken will come to pass. Let it be done. Let it be done. It shall be done. Every dream, every hope that he's made, every promise, in the name of Jesus. We receive it. Sing it out, guys. Dear God, thank you so much for your extraordinary blessings, God. Thank you that you shine down upon us, Lord, and that you fill us with your love. Thank you so much for this day. Thank you for independence. Lord God, thank you for those freedoms that we have as Americans. And as children of yours, God, help us to focus and fix our eyes on you today. Lord God, help us to receive this message and apply it into our own lives, God, and just to be a part of something bigger today. We love you, we praise you, and we thank you so much. Amen.
Hey, what's going on, River Lake? I hope you're having a great week, and I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. Tomorrow is July 1st, and that is the first day of the second half of the year. And one of the things that we talked about as a church when we started this year is what got us here won't get us there. We did a big vision series. We did this whole kind of thing about that it's all about your next steps, that we were made to move, and because of that, you're made to move. But I don't know about you, but I know that it's easy to start, it's hard to finish. And so we're in the middle of the year, and I want to take today and just kind of do a reboot with you, to sit back and kind of own the fact that maybe some of you, maybe most of you, aren't at the place you would hope to be come July 1st. And talk to you today about how do you reboot your life? How do you reset it? What does that look like for you to end 2019 better than you started? And so with that said, I want to walk through a story that if you grew up in church or maybe you didn't, you may have heard. It's the story of Moses. Moses is this guy in the Old Testament that changes the course of history through a nation. He had a high calling, and yet, like so many of us, he did some stuff in his past that he felt like took him out of it. In fact, I don't know what your past is, but he killed somebody. Okay, so whatever your issue is, it's probably pretty JV compared to Moses's. And so Moses finds himself in a desert of his own, away from his calling, away from what he wanted to do. And yet, like some of you here today, like what I hope for all of us is, there's a still small voice calling us to something more. As I said, I believe you were made to move. I believe that you were made to grow, that you weren't made to just exist, not to just survive, but to thrive. And so I want to walk through what I believe are the 3 phases of what real growth looks like, sustaining long-term growth. The first is this. It's the beginning. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, everything needs to have a beginning, but for some, the start is the hardest part. And I believe the start happens with a conversation. Every great thing that happens in life started with a conversation. For some, it started with a conversation with a friend, maybe, over coffee, where a friend challenges them and says, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Or maybe it's a conversation with yourself that you get up one morning, maybe like I have, and you look in the mirror and you look at yourself and you have a very different conversation with yourself about how you look. Or maybe you look at your bank account. You look at that checking and you look at the zeros or lack of zeros, and you have a conversation with yourself about what needs to change. Or for some, maybe it's a conversation with God. For Moses, it was a conversation with God. Again, he finds himself in a desert season of his life, feeling stuck, wanting more, believing that he was called for more, feeling like he had a destiny, and yet at the same time disconnected from the very destiny that he was called to because of his past. If you're here this morning and you're watching this and you're thinking that, you know what, my past has disqualified me from my destiny, I want you to know that this story is for you. If you're here and you think, man, my current situation has disqualified me from my destiny, I want you to know the story is for you, because no matter where you're at, I believe God's voice constantly is calling us to make our move. And so again, if you know the story, you know that Moses sees this like bush that's burning on the side of a mountain, and he goes and checks it out. And God uses this thing to kind of draw him in. And God, in a moment of clarity for Moses, calls him to something greater. He calls him to something bigger. He reminds him of his destiny, and he says, listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back. I want you to lead my people out of bondage. That's a big call. That's a big ask, especially for somebody with his past. And so what happens is, to Moses is the very same thing that happens to you, which is Moses starts to ask questions. See, phase one, the beginning, for you to get out of phase one, you're going to have to do something incredibly important. You're going to have to answer 3 really important, vital questions in your life. And Moses asks all 3 of God. God gives him the vision. God gives him the mission. Here it is. It says this in Exodus chapter 4, verse 1. He says, "But Moses said to God, 'Who am I?'" Man, that's the question, isn't it? Moses is struggling with his identity. Moses is struggling with who he is. He's looking at the calling and realizing, I don't know if I line up. I don't know if I measure up with this. I don't know if I can do this. Who am I? Every one of us, we've got to answer that question. Who are you? Who are you more specifically? Let me push you a little bit farther. Who are you in Christ? He goes on, he says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And then if you read the story, it's so powerful. God starts to speak to Moses about who he is in God's eyes. And he starts to answer that question for Moses, but Moses quickly moves on to the second question that we have to answer. He says this, Moses said to God, "Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' What shall I tell him?'" See, the first question you've got to answer is, who are you? The second question you've got to answer is, who is he? Who's God in your life? Who is he? I mean, I run into so many people that say that, yeah, I believe in God. I believe in something else. But it's funny when you go down deeper with them, if you have coffee with them or you talk to them about that version of God, what I find is there's so many different versions. Some people believe in a big God. Some people believe in a small God. Some people believe in a God that cares about where your parking space is, and some people believe a God that really doesn't care about much unless you beg, borrow, and steal all the stuff that he wants you to. Many of us believe in God, but who is that God? Moses doesn't know. He's asking a great question. And some of you here today, you're stuck in phase one. You're stuck in the beginning. You're stuck in neutral, so to speak, wanting to believe that there's a different destiny for you, but not sure if you can get there. Why? Because you're not sure who God is. You're not sure if you can trust him. You're not sure if he's going to show up. You're not sure if what's even talking to you, the voice even in your heart or your mind, you're not even sure that's God's voice. You're trying to decipher, is it a God thing or is it the voice of my childhood? Is it insecurity? Moses is struggling with these questions. And as you read the rest of that chapter, what you see is God lays out a plan for him in such great detail. I mean, God goes into this whole thing of like, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then you're going to do, and then I'm going to do. And for several verses, God lays it out for him, the plan. And again, you would think, man, that's enough. That's what he needed to know, but he's still got insecurity. See, Moses got to answer the third question. It's not enough just to know who you are and who God is. You've got to ask the third question. He says this in chapter 4 of Exodus. He says, Moses answered, "What if they do not believe me?" Every one of you has to answer the question of, who am I going to believe? Who am I going to believe? See, starting a new journey, starting whatever it is you want to start. Maybe it's starting a journey on getting healthier. Maybe it's starting a journey on getting financially fit. Maybe it's starting a journey in growing your faith with God, or maybe it's starting a journey in restoring your marriage. I don't know what your journey is. What I know is as you start it, there's going to be a whole bunch of voices in your world that are going to doubt you. It's going to be a whole bunch of voices. Some literal, maybe it's a family member who says you can't do that. Maybe it's a friend who's trying to encourage you not to. Maybe it's an enemy. I don't know. Maybe it's social media. I don't know what it is. Maybe even the voice that's loudest in your world is your own. I know for me, when we started this church, and tomorrow is 1 year since we opened the new building, I got to tell you, I know for me, some of the loudest voices that I had to get over weren't the voices outside, but they were the voices inside. They were the voices that were telling me, are you good enough? And can you do it? And what about? And I had to ask the question, who am I going to believe? What if they don't believe? That was Moses' question. But the better question is, What if I don't believe? And more specifically, who am I going to believe? See, if you're here this morning and I'm walking through something and you know there's something that God's calling you to do, you know there's a next step in your relationships, in your finances, in your walk, in your food. I don't know if you know there's a next step and all you do is maybe show up to church, or all you do is have the right people around you, and you know who you are and you know who God is, but you've never answered the question, who are you going to believe when it gets tough? You'll never move forward. You'll never get out of this first phase, because starting is tough, isn't it? Starting brings up all kinds of insecurities and issues and struggles about whether it's going to work and what's going to happen. Are people going to make fun of me, and what are they going to think? And at the end of the day, you've got to answer the question, do I believe that God's in this? And do I believe the God that I know? When I answer question 2, who is God? Do I believe that that same God can sustain me? Until you answer those 3 questions, you will never move past phase 1. So here's what I know. While every great adventure has a beginning, I'm telling you, the longest part, maybe the most challenging part, is the middle. I mean, isn't it so true? It's easy to start something. It's easier even to finish it, but to stick with it in the middle is the hardest part. Maybe that's where some of you are today. You feel stuck in the middle. You feel like you're trapped. You feel like the Israelites felt, because here's what happened in the story. We're going to fast forward a little bit, but what we see is Moses is faithful. Moses steps into his calling. He steps into his destiny, and it's not as easy as he wanted it to be, but he's doing it. He's being faithful to it. And what happens is he leads them into the desert. He leads them into this place that is dry, it's dusty, it's dirty, and it feels like nothing is alive. Maybe that's where you're at. You had a great start to your marriage. Now it feels dry. It feels like a desert. Maybe it's your career. Maybe you had a great start to your career. You got out of college and you were like, man, this is going to be incredible. And you got a new job and you were excited, and yet you find yourself maybe in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s and it feels dry. It feels like everything that was just awesome and had life is now gone. I don't know what it is, but I know that every single one of us at some point in life, we're going to have seasons where it feels like we're stuck in the desert, where we have to let go of the past to walk into what God's called us to. But if we don't expect it, if we don't know it's coming, and if we don't know how to recognize the unique challenge of the middle, we'll never make it out. The Israelites almost didn't make it out. We get this inside look as Moses is leading the nation, and there's millions and millions of people. I can't imagine leading that many people, but Moses has this job of leading so many people. And in the middle of it, believe it or not, some of them weren't happy. Now, if you've led anybody at all ever, you know you can't make everybody happy. You got to deal with it, but you can't make them happy. And so Moses is leading people. They're in the desert. They're struggling. And I want you to see what they say. It's so fascinating to me. Numbers chapter 11. It says this, the rabble, that's a fancy word, I guess, for them. The rabble with them began to crave other food. I just want to pause there for a second and say this. Up until that moment, God was giving them manna. Every day they had water, they had shelter, and they had food. The problem wasn't they were starving, it's they wanted something else. Do you know that's when we get into trouble? That's when we get in trouble with God. That's when we get into trouble with other people. Think about it for a second. Most marriages, that gets in trouble. Why? When somebody says, I want something other. I'm married right now, but I want something other than what I currently have. It's how you get into financial bankruptcy, isn't it? You have a phone or you have a car and your car still kind of works. Or your house, I mean, listen, it's a roof. It's not wonderful, but you want something other than what God's given you. Maybe it's even gifting. Maybe you're sitting here and you're gifted uniquely, but yet you look at other people, you look at social media, you look at what they're good at, and you start to crave what is other than what you have. See, when you're in the desert, when you're stuck in the middle, all of a sudden, you start to look around. You start to look and start to compare. When in the beginning, you're excited. In the beginning, it's all about you, and you're answering your own questions, and you're walking through your own stuff. But when you're stuck in the middle, when it's a desert, when it's dry, that's when it gets complicated. That's when you're tempted to look around. And so it says these rabble-rousers, these people, they're looking around, and they're asking the question, what else is there? And here's what they say. And the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. Again, they're not starving. They just want something else. They're just like, man, listen, I'm sick of eating hamburgers. I'd love lobster. I'm sick of eating vegetables. All these fresh vegetables are terrible. I'd like some tacos tonight. Where's Taco Tuesday at, God? Okay, I really am hungry. They're walking through. But here's what I want you to see. Verse 5, chapters 11 of Numbers. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Do you know why it was no cost? Because they were slaves. I mean, what a backwards, messed up view of the situation. I mean, they're like, yeah, I remember like when we were slaves and we were chained up and we had no rights and we had no health care, we had no issues. Man, do you remember how amazing the fish was in that situation? That's what they're walking through. And then they go on, they say, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. I hate vegetables, so that's not very appealing to me at all. But what they're saying is they're remembering this, and then they say this, but now we have lost our appetite. And here's the key word, we never see anything but this manna. I don't know what journey God's got you on right now. I don't know where he's calling you to take some steps of faith. I don't know what it looks like. What I know is when we are stuck in the desert, when we feel dry inside, when we don't see the growth that we want to see around us, what happens is we tend to romanticize what we remember while criticizing where we are currently. Isn't it true? It's the person in marriage and they're fantasizing about their ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend from high school. Forget the fact that they broke up with them because it didn't work out, but they're remembering and romanticizing the past, all the while criticizing the current reality. We do that all the time. We mess this up so much. It's so easy to look at the Israelites and be like, man, who would want to go back into slavery for a melon? Who would want to go back into slavery for a steak? I mean, that doesn't make any sense, but you do that all the time. I do that all the time. I mean, think about it for a second. It's the person who goes back into financial slavery to buy the thing that they really don't need through credit cards. In Proverbs, it says this way, that the borrow, and here's the language it uses, is slave to the lender. And yet, I know too many people, they're in financial slavery because they can't stop buying. Because they tend to keep thinking about what they don't have. They want other food. It's just in the form of shoes or clothes, or maybe it is food, or maybe it's a house. I don't know what it is. But you do that. I do that all the time. We put ourselves in a situation where we're in bondage to something that God doesn't want us to be in bondage in. It's relational. We walk into relational slavery. When you leave an unhealthy relationship, and you know it's unhealthy for whatever reason, only to go back. Why? Because you don't want to be alone. And so you compromise the call and you're stuck in the middle and you kind of get out. And again, leaving's kind of easy. Leaving's the start. The start is so easy. The middle is the challenge. The middle is where it's tough. And so you get into the middle of the relationship and you're alone. I'm telling you, there's some people watching right now. Listen, you're alone and you're exactly where God wants you to be. Singleness is not a disease. It's not. That God has a plan for you, and if you're faithful, if you can navigate the challenge of the middle, and we're going to get to how here in a second, I'm telling you, there's a promised land on the other side. But you've got to not romanticize just what you remember. We do it in so many ways with addictions, where we romanticize how great it is, and so we walk back into an addiction for a few minutes of pleasure. We are this nation. We are these people. And every one of us, we have a middle to walk through. And if we don't understand how to navigate it, we will never get through it. See, the fear of the middle is this, The fear is that you will walk through the pain without ever receiving the payoff. You walk through it. It's a lot like my kids. When I was teaching them how to swim, there's this whole tension of letting go of what they know, letting go of the edge of the pool so that they can go into where God's called them to grow. That's your challenge, to let go of what you know, to swim into, to reach into the area that God's called you to grow. And when I would do that with my kids, I would play this game where they'd be on the ledge and they'd be holding on, just gripping it white-knuckled. And I would stand a foot and I'd be like, hey, jump. And they would like jump, let go, but jump. They could make it in one leap. But then as a good dad, I would back out a little bit, right? I mean, if you're a dad, you know where I'm going with this, right? And you keep going back and they would look at me and they're holding on white-knuckled. They'd be like, come closer. I'm like, no, you can make it. I'm growing them. I want them to grow. And it feels like I'm distant. It feels like I'm walking away from them. Some of you right now, you're in this desert feeling season right now spiritually, and it feels like God's distant from you. It feels like God's withdrawing himself from you. I want you to understand God's calling you to let go of what you know, to trust him, to stay where you're at, to trust him, to let go of the edge and the ledge that you're holding on to, and go into this next season and grow. That's the challenge for all of us. See, what I want you to see is this. During the desert, lots of things grow. You ever been to a desert or you ever seen a desert? Man, it looks on the surface like nothing grows, doesn't it? It's all sand. It's all kind of this brown dirt, nasty. Kind of looks like nothing grows. But actually, if you watch some documentaries, you do the Discovery Channel, look up, man, lots of things grow in the desert. The desert is fertile ground for so many things, but most of them are deeper. Most of them are underneath the ground. It's the things that are buried there. And what I want you to see is when you walk through the season, your tendency is to think you're stuck. You're not stuck. You're just pushing for the wrong direction. See, where I want you to see is God is growing who you are, not what you're doing. During the desert season, often God wants to grow you as an individual, not necessarily your trajectory for it. Man, you started, it's great. You started that health, that diet, that new journey, that spiritual, you started that, that's great. You're going to walk through a season, and in that season, God will grow you. You may not see a lot of progress externally, but if you do it right, you will see a lot of growth internally. That God is going to start to move in you so that when you get to the edge and the ledge of God's promised land, you know what? You don't walk away from it. Which may sound crazy to you, but again, we read the story in the nation of Israel. What we find is that they get right to the edge and they sign up a committee that's going to go spy it out, and they come back and they're like, man, this land is amazing. It's got grapes and giants. 10 of the spies say don't go. 2 of them say go, and they don't. Think about that for a second. They left Egypt. They started. They answered the right questions. They suffered the middle. And they finally get to the edge and they don't go. Why? Because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in that desert season. And so God keeps them there another 40 years. It's crazy to me. It's crazy, but 40 years. And do you know what happens 40 years later when Joshua gets to the edge and ledge again? There is no committees. There's no phone calls. There's no discussion. He's like, no. I've waited my whole life for this. Let's go. In those 40 years, what God did in the nation of Israel is instead of taking them further, he took them deeper. He reinforced who he was. So if you find yourself today in a season that you feel like, man, God's got me in the middle. God's got me in this desert season. I want you to quit looking at the external. I want you to ask 3 questions. I want you to go deeper, not further. Here's question number 1. Where are you trying to grow me? You need to ask God that. God, where are you trying to grow me? If it's not external, if it's not to make my circumstances better, God, can you make my character more pure? God, where are you trying to grow me? Number 2, what part of my life are you trying to reinforce? I want you to understand what part, you need to ask that question. What part of your life are you trying to reinforce? Maybe there's something about who God is that he's trying to reinforce in your life that you need. See, here's the deal. The Israelites didn't walk into the nation. Why? Because it wasn't reinforced who God was in their life. And so some of you need to make sure right now in this season that you're preparing your heart so that when you get to that opportunity, you don't walk away from it. Third question is this: what part of your character are you trying to reveal to me? For some, God's wanting to reveal who he is. You read the stories of that 40 years, and God communicated over and over and over again. I'm in control. I've got you. You're fine. I'm in control. I've got you. You're fine. Another battle. I'm in control. I've got you. You're fine. And for many of you, if you'd be honest, and you look back on your life, and you look back at the battles that you fought and the challenges that you've had, I bet you come to the conclusion that, you know what? God was trying to reveal something to you. He's in control. He's got you. And while it may not end up the way that you want, you're going to be fine. But if you don't let God grow that in you in this season, if you just think it's the desert, if you just start looking for other food and other opportunities, if you start to reminisce and just start to really just look back at the past with such great joy, you will return back. You will go back. You will miss what God has for you. The last phase is so simple. The last phase is so simple to do, and yet I got to tell you, I think it might be the single most challenging one. This last phase it's the end. It's the one that, like, man, we got there. Yes, all right, you're gonna cross the finish line. And you might think, Nick, why do you got to do a section on the end like it's the end? Like you cross the line. Like, why are we even gonna talk about it like this? It's just the start and the middle, and if you can get to the end, like, isn't it done? That's the problem. That's the problem. Like the problem isn't for many people the beginning and the middle. Actually, I want to tell you this, and I need you to lean in. If you've been zoned out the whole time, lean in for this point right here. Success is actually the most challenging thing that can happen to a person. It's not failure. Winning, getting what you want, actually normally ends up being the most challenging things in our lives. Think about it for a second. So many people, they spend all their time trying to get married, but they never plan their marriage. And so we got divorce rates that are through the roof. So many people, think about it for a second, maybe if you're in high school or college or whatever, don't miss this. So many people spend 18, 22, 26, if you're like me, 8 years of college, you spend so much time trying to get a job, only to cross that finish line and think, yes, I did it, and then find out that you didn't keep pushing, you didn't keep going, you didn't keep succeeding, and to lose it. So many people thought, man, if I could ever just make a certain amount of money, maybe it's if I could ever make $40,000, $50,000. I remember one season of my life when I was making $32,000, I thought, man, if I would make $48,000, wow, incredible. I was ready to receive the success, but I wasn't ready to handle what it brought. See, with success comes its own unique challenges. And if you're not ready for it, actually the very thing that you strive for, the very thing that you want in life, getting the thing that you're going for, actually can ruin your life more than not. And nobody ever talks about this, but I want to end our time together just kind of reading a section that is the end and, in fact, the beginning of a new section in the life and the history of Israel. They have gone to the edge and ledge. They have failed that. They were in the desert for 40 years, and they're getting ready. They're getting ready to walk back in, to cross the finish line into the promised land. And Moses writes this. In Deuteronomy, he says this just important, powerful thing. He says this like this. He says, I will die in this land. I'm not going to cross over. But you are about to cross over and take possession of that good land. Now, again, if I was writing the Bible, I would be like, and the next line says, and he threw a party. Let's party. Man, it's been a hard 40 years. Man, we get it. That's what we do in marriages, right? We get married, and what do? We throw a party. We have a baby. Man, we work so hard to have the baby. We don't really work that hard on how to become a great parent. And so what do? We throw a baby shower. We throw parties at the finish line. If it was me, I would write it. I'd be like, man, Moses looking at him going, you got it. Let's celebrate. That's not at all what he says. In fact, the next two words are so important. Next two words is really what I want everyone in the audience to hear right now. It says this: be careful. You're about to get what you want. God's about to bless you. That's a great thing. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel anything but joy. Don't feel anything but gratitude. That's not a bad thing. You're about to get it. But with the blessing comes a burden. So Moses is looking at the nation. And because he's a good leader and because he's a good guy, he says, listen, be careful. And he goes on to say, not to forget the covenant of the Lord your God that he made with you. Do not make for yourselves an idol in the form of anything the Lord your God has forbidden. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. And so Moses looks at him and says, oh, here's the deal. Don't mess it up. Success comes with the potential to mess up and ruin your life. Again, every marriage starts with a party, but maybe we need to change it. Maybe as an officiant, I need to sit back and change what I say and say, hey, it's a great day. Be careful. Maybe instead of smacking the baby, and I don't even think they smack the babies anymore, but maybe when they hand you the baby, maybe the next words need to be careful. Maybe when you get the dream job that you wanted, you worked so hard for, maybe instead of throwing a party, what we need to say is be careful, because there is a danger in success. See, the danger in all of this is to start to lean in and forget it was God that got you there in the first place. He says, be careful, don't forget it was God. Isn't it so true that our ego starts to take over? That we start to think it's us. We start to think, man, I did this. Look at the hard work I put in. Look at how good a parent I am. Look at my marriage. Look at what I'm doing. We start to forget God in the process of this. And Moses is like, no, you need to understand. Be very, very careful. Because your temptation is like my temptation. It's to forget God. I see it so often on Sunday mornings. I see people who are broken and they need God. They're at phase one. They need a new beginning. They need a new start. So what do? They show up and they come to church. And man, they're coming week in and week out and week in and week out. And they're doing good and they're making strides forward. They're growing in their walk with God. They're growing in their area. They're growing in their marriage. I see it over and over again. But you know what happens? They get good. And the very thing that they sought God for, all of a sudden, church, prayer, all of a sudden that becomes secondary. And they slowly drift away from God. Just telling you, if you're here today, you're actually like, man, Nick, I'm in a good place. Things are going good. My marriage is good. My kids are good. Listen, that's awesome. That's great. I'm glad that we won't need to be doing counseling. That's incredible. I love that. Here's the deal. Hear my heart in this. Be careful in this season of your life to put God first. In fact, there's a very clear next step for you that I want to encourage you to do, and it's so simple. I want you to rinse and repeat. You ever heard that phrase? Rinse and repeat. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to rinse the ego off of you, because that's what happens, isn't it? We get egotistical. We start thinking, man, I did this and I got this and we'll be fine. We say weird things like, I can handle it, when we weren't able to handle it ever before. We start to lie to ourselves, and I want you to just kind of rinse the ego off of you, and then I want you to go back to steps 1 and 2 and repeat. See, it's when you stop growing, when you stop moving, that actually that's when you start to die. And I started today off by telling you and reminding you that you were made to move, that you were designed that way, that you were designed to continually lean into your heavenly Father, to listen to His voice, to answer those questions, to continually go forward and deeper and forward and deeper and forward and deeper. That there isn't really a finish line. There's just peaks that we kind of get to and we stop for a bit, that we can celebrate for a little bit, but then we go back to it. And so if you're here today, I want to encourage you. If you're like, man, I'm doing great. This is so good, man. Listen, your temptation, your fear is to mess it up. Your struggle is to lose what God has given you, but it's actually in losing our lives, it says. Jesus says this, when we lose our lives, that's actually when we gain them. That as we come back to step 1 and go, God, I don't have anything. God, speak to me. What do you want me to do? That's actually when we start to move forward again, and you were made to move. So I don't know where you're at. I don't know what's next for you. Wherever you're at, there's 3 things you need to do. Number 1, some of you need to start, and if you're in that starting phase, You need to ask the right questions. We had those questions earlier. We'll send out an email tomorrow. But you need to ask the right questions about who am I? Who is God? And who am I going to believe? If you're in the middle right now and you feel stuck, you feel like, man, I'm in this desert and I'm so stuck. I need you to understand, you need to go deeper, not further. You need to quit waiting for God to change your circumstances and start to allow God to change your character and who you are, who they are. And if you're here today, and man, I hope you are actually, and you're good, everything's good. You're crossing the finish line in a season in your life. You're accomplishing a goal. You're graduating college or high school, or you're getting ready to get that job, or you're getting ready to get married. Man, that's incredible. I just want to encourage you. Just wipe off the ego. Just be careful. And then go back to steps 1 and 2. Man, I hope today has been helpful for you. I hope you take the reset button. You take some time today, maybe as you drive home, maybe in a conversation over dinner, if you're married, maybe talking it over with your spouse or whatever, and you figure out, man, where are we at and how do we finish 2019 the best possible way? Tomorrow starts the second half. Don't miss it.
So I don't know where you're at today. I don't know if you're at the beginning, the middle, or the end. But I do hope that you can take some time today, ask yourself the right questions, get those answers so that tomorrow you're ready to start the last half of 2019 and we can finish strong. We can finish strong as individuals, as families, and as a church. As Pastor Nick mentioned, you will receive an email tomorrow with the key points from today's message so that you can continue to think about that and ask yourself those questions. It's been a pleasure seeing you all today. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.